Hey, we're here today with Justin Mitchell, founder of Coding for Entrepreneurs. Justin has a super exciting story I'm really excited to share with you. I'll let Justin start. Justin, tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Well, Ankur, thanks for having me, and I'm super excited to be here. Teaching online is one of the most incredible things that one can do because I think that we're all kind of naturally built in with this teaching gene, and it's something that some of us do all the time, others do just just a little bit. So as far as actually jumping in and learning and getting to the point where I wanted to teach, growing up, I actually listened to a lot of audiobooks with my dad. So whether it's Tony Robbins or Chicken Soup for the Soul, I listened to that stuff all the time. So learning from something that is remote was definitely something I grew up with, and I think kids now are going to see it all the time. But at the time, it was listening to actual tapes, and those tapes were in this big like boombox type thing. We would sit there and listen to them, and my dad and I would have discussions after, and I'm like 8 years old listening to Tony Robbins because, I don't know, it was great. But also Chicken Soup for the Soul, where it told stories, and you can get some like value out of those stories, and there'd always be a nice theme to it and stuff like that. So as far as growing with this like kind of remote learning type of stuff, that's how I was raised. So
Think you were going to do this or something like this? Like, has that been something in the
well,
back of your mind?
Well, yeah, probably. It's been in the back of my mind for a long time, but as far as like actually doing it as a profession, not necessarily because like I said, I think teaching is in our genes. It's a part of who we are as humans. So I think that I looked at these stories as being a leader more than being a teacher. Now, those aren't always mutually exclusive, but I played sports my whole life too, and my dad, same type of mentality of listening to these videos, would always give me advice as a coach, right? He would always kind of help me as a coach, not really as a teacher, but as a coach. Or a trainer. I kind of separate those two kind of to some degree. And that carried over to my attitude as I grew up, and as I matured, I started being that type of coach to a lot of my teammates. And I think having the experience listening to Tony Robbins and Chicken Soup for the Soul really helped kind of build that like leadership mentality in my mind, and then also be willing to share it in a way that people can kind of grasp easily and not be harsh, but be very coach-like and really help try and build up that person. So
That's pretty cool. That's so much more benevolent than a lot of other answers we've heard. There's a lot of people like, hey, this was a great way, to make money online. This is a great way to build a business, but you like just came into it for the passion of teaching.
yeah, well, it's the passion of something, right? Like, I mean, I really, really enjoy what I'm doing. And it's like an awesome challenge, like in so many ways, which we'll probably talk about. But I think it's our responsibility as anyone who knows stuff to share those things, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be with the world. You don't have to make a class out of it. Maybe it's with your local community. Maybe it's with children if you have them, or when you have them, or other people's children, or tutoring someone who needs it. Like, I think it's in like our responsibility to do that if you know something. And some of the best leaders in the world have done that and have shaped organizations around that, which is something that's really.
I think you put it really well. Like if you think about it, I mean, teaching is in our DNA. Everyone teaches people, whether you're teaching your son, whether you're teaching even like if you go back historically, like teaching your tribe, like skills were meant to be transferred. It's a very inherently human thing to teach.
Absolutely, yeah,
It
100%.
makes a ton of sense. More practically, when did you start like teaching on? When did you start coding for entrepreneurs, and how did that come about specifically?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I'll tell you the story that led up to learning how to code in the first place. So in college, I went to the University of Southern California. I studied entrepreneurship, which will probably. What's that?
Said I hate the Trojans.
That's too bad for you. You either love us or hate us. It's kind of one of those things.
I went to school at Cal, and you guys destroyed us every single year.
Yeah, we'll get used to it, man. It's gonna be the future too. But anyways, back to it. So I went to school there, studied business, and being that I listened to Tony Robbins and Chicken Soup for the Soul, and my dad was an entrepreneur, especially as a young kid, I wanted that same type of lifestyle. Like my dad was able to go to pretty much all my sporting events and stuff like that, and that meant a lot to me. And I wanted to do the same type of thing as I grew up. But I also learned that it's better to have a product that you sell and that you can work on and improve and make it better versus what my father was doing, which is it was a chiropractor, so he had to actually physically be there, and there's a lot of demands there. So anyways, I want to start this online business, and for all those reasons, to have freedom of location and when I work and all that. And in school at the time, Facebook was just now starting to come out. Web 2.0 was very popular.
What year was this approximately?
It was probably about 2006 is when I actually really started ramping up towards building online stuff. And then in about 2009, I found a partner that I actually ended up working with. He was a technical guy, so I pitched this idea to help like restaurants find and hire their service staff online. So the idea was to take like how Match.com works, and then apply that to job seeking, and then do that for restaurants specifically because there's high turnover. Anyways, I think the idea is still pretty solid. The one challenge that we had was nobody wanted to buy it, which was a very important lesson for me. But anyways, so my technical partner ended up getting recruited, getting a job and all that, and I was kind of left with this business that either I could continue to improve it and try and figure out a business model that worked, or and while doing that, I would have to find another technical co-founder, or I could actually learn and do it myself. So I opted to learn and do it myself, and I tried every programming language that you could think of, every single one. And then finally I found Python and then the Django web framework, which I teach. And after a lot of trial and error, I started learning it and I started getting good at it. And that natural leadership coaching type thing came out with me, and I'm like, hey, I gotta put something like this online. I really actually have to teach this because it's starting to click with me, and I would have loved having that course, or the Coding for Entrepreneurs course, when I was starting out. So that's kind of how I got into actually teaching.
So you're the best kind of teacher. You were a teacher that once kind of went through the same frustration, learned it yourself, and now you're teaching other people.
Absolutely. I think that's the way to do it, right? I mean, if you really want to master a skill too, not only you learn that skill in the first place.
I'm sure you've gotten much better at coding by virtue of teaching this class.
Absolutely, because especially with coding, because you have to problem solve a lot, and once you problem solve, you might get it right. And for most coders, you problem solve, you're done. But if you have to problem solve and then teach how you figured it out, that is a whole nother challenge in and of itself, and makes you that much better.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. So you started, so then timelines was Coding for Entrepreneurs then launched in 2009, 2010, or?
No, Coding for Entrepreneurs ended up launching in 2013, so about April of 2013. So I've been doing it almost a year and a half now. And then prior to that, I was doing like freelance work with my development and just improving my skills.
You've been a paid developer before you were teaching development.
Yeah. And also like all types of things with web design and stuff like that. But I was very much a junior developer when I was doing a lot of the freelance stuff. So the months prior to Coding for Entrepreneurs, I really ramped up my skills and just really digged in deep and got that much better.
You were probably one of the only people from the USC Business School that then became a freelance developer after.
Yeah, probably. I mean, it didn't happen right away, but it definitely did happen. And I would almost say, and I was probably one of the only ones to then teach development and then go back and teach it at USC as well. So
that's pretty cool. That's a great story.
Yeah, thanks.
So Coding for Entrepreneurs, so you launched, I believe, you launched on Udemy and the Marketplace? Was that your first launch?
Well, the first thing I did was actually called Website Design for Entrepreneurs, because it's something that I was very, very comfortable with, so I could easily teach a class on. And I did that as more of a test, and I put it on Udemy to kind of see if anyone wanted this for entrepreneurs thing, right? So web design for entrepreneurs. There's the assumption that people would want it, entrepreneurs would want it. Udemy tended to have an entrepreneurial audience, and I put it on there for free. And every day I was getting emails of people signing up, and I'm like, whoa, why? I mean, I didn't market it at all. I just put it on Udemy, and people were signing up for it. And granted, it was free, but it validated in my mind that, hey, I should take this one step further and actually teach coding like I've wanted to do. And so what I did was, a friend of mine invited me to go to one of the startup weekends, and I declined. Instead, I made my Coding for Entrepreneurs class, the first version of it, and I took a weekend, just a weekend, sat down. It took me probably, I want to say 10 or 12 hours to actually complete the whole initial class. But you know that the social
10 or 12 hours is actually pretty good. If you like, look at the ROI on time spent, like what is 12 hours? Like that's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I have improved it so many times since, but the same class, right? But yeah, I mean, it was nothing. I mean, it was a very.
It's funny you talk about that because a lot of what we teach in this course is principles that you've like just intuitively followed. Like one of the things we tell people is pick a really, really stupidly aggressive deadline because otherwise nothing really gets done, and work around making it happen. The second thing we talk about is the idea of like a minimum viable course. Start with something like that has the basic ideas you want to convey, but just launch it. Come back to it like a week later, 2 weeks later, keep making it better, but just get something out there. And it's great that you already like applied that and did it, just right off the bat.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we probably read a lot of the same material and learn from a lot of the same stuff because getting it out there is one of the hardest things. That was the hardest thing about it. I thought about it for like 3 or 4 months before I actually made the first class.
Yeah.
And then having that hard deadline because a friend, the social pressure, right? I told my friend, I'm like, no, I'm going to make my class this weekend. If I didn't make that class and I didn't go to that startup weekend, my friend would have gave me a bunch of crap for it, So I'm like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. So, and also the premise of Startup Weekend, if you haven't heard of it, it's basically you meet up with a bunch of people, you pitch some ideas, and then you make a business in that weekend, like an actual functioning business. It might be a very small scale of it, like a minimum viable business or viable product, but they do it. And I'm like, hey, if they can do that in a weekend, there's no reason I can't make a course in a weekend on something that I know I'm getting better.
I feel like we should experiment with setting up an event for course creators like that.
Hey, that's not a bad idea. Yeah, absolutely.
And like we could probably help out and just maybe have a filmographer and a few other people like just over there to make it really easy. I think that's totally something people would sign up for.
Yeah, that'd be a cool, fun event. I mean, the vibe also with a lot of these entrepreneurial people, whether it's online instructors or just entrepreneurs in general, is so amazing. Like I went to a school that entrepreneurship was very much in its DNA, or at least the school I went to in the university, very much in its DNA, and it's so like invigorating to be around other people that want to make stuff happen. So that would be an awesome event. I would definitely love to participate in that.
Yeah, no, that's sweet. We'll do it, and you should come to New York for that. That'd be great.
or we do it in California, or both places.
Well, if we do it in the winter, I'm down for that. Cool. All right. So then started on Udemy. You spent the weekend on it. On the first paid course. What happened next?
Right. So finished the course, took a week to actually release it. Nerves, right? Like, I mean, nerves were getting the best of me. I was so afraid of being judged. I think this is probably something a lot of instructors are thinking about. A lot of entrepreneurs I've talked to.
Was your face on camera?
Very little. I mean, not as much as right now. Even maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
A lot of people have that as one of the first steps to overcome. Just the fact that they don't want to physically be in front of a camera. But you were okay. You had no problem with that aspect, at least.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I also did what was like comfortable for me. So as far as the camera is concerned, I mean, I went against a wall and just had a backdrop that was plain, not like it is right now. Because, I mean, you can look at my backdrop and go, what's going on back there? But realistically, it's about what we're talking about here. And I didn't really think about that then. So I was really concerned about the backdrop and all that. So I actually sat down on the floor so I could have a clean wall behind me. And then I gave this first little pitch using my webcam on my laptop and a mic similar to what you see here. This is not the mic that you're hearing. I actually have a different mic that you don't see. But as far as when I first did it, I was really rough. I was just going for it. And listening back to the old audio, you can hear the mic rubbing against my shirt and stuff like that. But anyways, that's the things that wasn't preventing me from releasing it for that first week. It was me. I was in my own head. I was thinking like, oh man, what if people don't like it? What if they like talk a bunch of crap about it and like, all that stuff. It was just in my head. And then I finally was like, you know what? If I actually want to do this and get it going, I just need to release it.
Yep.
So I did. I released it and I'm like, okay, well now how can I bring in people into my audience? And one of the strategies, there's a lot of ways to do this, but one of the things that I did was post on Reddit into one of the subreddits for Python, and then also in a subreddit for entrepreneurship. And those, I just gave away free passes to take my class on Udemy. Now, at the time, the strategy worked really well. I can't say for sure if it'll still work because so many other instructors have done it, because I have talked about that strategy before. But the point for me was to find an audience, give them the free pass, so give them a bunch of value, and prove that that value is worth something, so then hopefully they'll rate it or buy my later classes, right? Because in the short term, you need to look like you're a full restaurant, right? If you open a brand new restaurant and it's empty, that's not a good sign. You need to be full, and that's what I wanted to go for. I wanted to at least give the appearance that it's full and it's this new course that a lot of people like and want to be a part of. So Reddit, go ahead.
Go back. Do you have any tips for how people can orchestrate a successful Reddit campaign?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, you don't want to spam Reddit. Like, the Reddit audience is, well, they are very opinionated, right? If you only post stuff about your own classes, they will give you problems there. So if you have any related material,
They'll give you problems.
yeah, well, they'll vote you down and they'll like say a bunch of stuff about you, and like, I mean, it's just not like, it's not in their best practices. They want you to post all types of things, not only self-promotion, right? So what I would suggest is whatever you're working on, get a list of blog posts that you read that were important for your development and post those things on Reddit. Start doing that now. And then when you actually post your course, hopefully you have all these other postings too. And then you have maybe some goodwill built in the community itself. So then people will upvote what you're working on. Now, the other side of that is to have such great content that people just love it and will vote it up regardless of how much you've done in the past. And luckily, I fit in that category. And also at the time, what I'm teaching, I teach this web framework called Django. It's written in Python, right? So since I teach those things, not very many other people teach Django specifically. Even to this day, not very many people teach that online. So I really stuck out, even in the Python and Django community, I really stuck out in that sense, let alone the entrepreneurial community. So
I think the other thing you had going for you is there was not that much boredom and fatigue by people posting courses. I know a lot of people have since posted courses, and a lot of them do it poorly. So I know some Reddit communities are super antagonistic towards anyone posting a course. So it's one of those things that I've found, at least with our experience, to do it pretty delicately.
Yeah.
One of the strategies that I think also helps is either writing a blog post where the blog post advertises your course and only posting about the blog post. So it's a very kind of indirect soft sell versus saying, hey, check out my course. Or the second thing is finding a really good narrative. Like, we had a test prep teacher where his Reddit posted absurdly well. But instead of saying, hey, check out my course, the way he pitched his story is, hey, I'm an SAT tutor. I'm tired of working for the big guys, so I decided to like build something like fast, cheap, and efficient. I'd love your feedback, Reddit. So it was like a completely different angle. And I guarantee you, if he had like not done that and been like, get my SAT class completely free only for the next 2 days, he would have gotten downvoted to hell.
right.
So it's all about finding the right narrative. And the other thing we tell people, and I don't know if you noticed this, is a lot of people that are not familiar with Reddit, we tell them, expect a little bit of shit. Like, people will give you a little bit of trouble for what you say. You have to have a thick skin to a degree just to, be okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my experience too. You could see the Reddits that I post as well. My username is jmitchell3, and that's Mitchell with one L and the number 3. And you can see some of the responses that I get, and you just have to run with it. It's like you're always going to have people that don't like what you're doing. But if you don't,
the internet, like there's always like a jealous, especially if you're doing cool stuff. There's always going to be people pulling you down.
Yeah. I'm sure you hear that a decent amount, right? I mean, everyone does. Everyone that's doing something that's kind of going against the grain, that's what's going to happen. So, yeah.
Back to the stories. He posted it on Reddit, got a lot of free users there. How many free users, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, so initially I was like, okay, I'll make, I want to say like 100 free coupons. I had no idea what was going to happen. So I posted 100, and then I see all these Reddits saying, hey, the coupon's on, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, whoa. So I did another 100, and then after that, I decided to do 500, and then that was filled up. And then I finally jumped to doing another, I want to say I ended up with around 1,400, 1,500 free students. And then I was like, I'm done, right? And that also jumped me up in Udemy's ratings, like as far as traction, trending courses. They used to have different algorithms than they do now, but I was in a trending course as far as paid courses go. A lot of people who took it that were free, they went through the course, liked it, and gave me great ratings. And that also helped boost it a lot. And then sales started rolling in. That first month, I think I did like, I want to say $500, but then the next month it was like 3,000 and then, or 2,000, something like that. And then the numbers just kept going, and like some months are bigger, some months are lower. But yeah, that's kind of where it started off.
Do you ever do any analysis into the difference between free users and paid users? Because I ask this when we've looked at the numbers, I've found like a disappointingly low percentage of free users actually do anything. Like so many of them like just hoard these courses. I don't know why, but they like sign up just because it's free and they don't watch one lecture.
Right. So that's definitely still the case for a good majority. So so of those free users, how many of them actually did it? I don't know the exact numbers, but it's probably 90-10. 90 didn't do anything, and then 10% actually did. Maybe even lower than that. To be honest, I didn't actually check those numbers. It's not something that I was concerned about. I was more of like, hey, I need to get this out there. I need to get some early traction.
It's like definitely something you want to do, but not be surprised when you realize like, hey, I gave this valuable thing away for free. Why are people not doing anything? I think that's just like one, human nature. Two, there's like these hoarders that just love like collecting free shit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the other side of it too is if your course has a cool name, cool title, cool pitch, cool description, all that stuff, you might be able to get a bunch of people to sign up because of that, free or not. But then they take one or two lectures and like, you know what, this is not really for me. That does happen too. I mean, it happens with me. I think it happens with most instructors in general.
But what I've found is when people pay for stuff, their behavior changes drastically. There's very few people that pay for a course that don't at least watch like one or two lectures.
Absolutely. 100% agree with that statement. Yeah. Yeah. So, and then now in retrospect, though, what I would have also done is had some free classes on YouTube. YouTube has been a great driver of sales for me at this point because I give a lot of value there, and YouTube helps find all sorts of people that want to learn this stuff, which we can get into YouTube a little bit more later if we need. But basically, I get a lot of people that are free and people that don't want to pay anything ever. But then I also get people that are just looking for that next level, that next edge. Now, I'm thinking about how I would learn or what I did when I was learning in general or any skill. You go to YouTube and you search for some of the free stuff out there. And if it's great content and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so good. And then you see all this other great content that they sell for, a low price. Why not sign up for it at least 1 month and give it a shot? And that's what we've seen happen.
Do you do anything? Do you do anything to optimize your YouTube presence?
As far as tags and images, and then the descriptions, and then also like annotations and stuff like that. All of those things I definitely build in.
So how much time do you spend? Say when you upload a course that has 20 videos, how much time do you spend actually tagging all the videos, like optimizing keywords? Do you do it on a per video basis? Do you do it on a playlist basis? Like, how much time do you spend on that entire process?
Yeah, right now I have 2 main tutorials on my YouTube channel, and then I have a few like independent tutorials by themselves. So a tutorial being a full playlist of an actual project, and then independent tutorials just kind of are self-contained videos. So as far as the full playlist, I spend a good amount of time to actually get the tags for that playlist, but luckily a lot of my content overlaps, so the tags themselves overlap too. But I do edit them, and then as far as the description and stuff like that, I edit that as well. YouTube does have an easy way to do description and tags automatically when you upload something. So if I'm doing a full project, I finish that project and then upload it to YouTube. I don't do it one time.
How much time do you think you'd spend on like just editing stuff?
I haven't sat down with a clock for it. Probably somewhere in the range of 15 hours, 20 hours, maybe at the most.
Do you think it's worth the ROI? Because that's what I was getting at. Like, do you think it's worth the 20 hours there? Because I know a lot of people just throw shit up on YouTube and it doesn't work and get demoralized.
Oh, I think it's absolutely has been for us. And that the main reason there is I believe our content speaks for itself, right? So if you don't have great content, then YouTube's not going to do anything for you. And like, I mean, you can argue with me all day long if our content's great, but people like it. So if you don't have content that people like, that's one thing, right? So we do.
If you have content that you think people like, you think you should totally spend time like on YouTube, like give it quality amounts of time. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, at least initially, you don't have to keep it on YouTube forever, right? You can take down this content at any time. It's your content. YouTube also wants to help you get viewers. YouTube loves it when people sit there and watch tons of videos. So keep that in mind too. So like, YouTube's very good with relevant content and all that. So if I was starting out now, I think I would use YouTube and Reddit in combination, put a lot of my early stuff on YouTube and make those first classes just on YouTube, just so I can start building that audience. And
so what's your flow from YouTube? How do you capture leads? Do you just send people to your site, or do you have them opt into another free thing on your site? Like, what's your flow for getting siphoning traffic off YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, I have a basic sign-up link from YouTube. I have email newsletters too that they sign up for. All my videos on YouTube, I do have a way to watch those videos for free and ad-free on my website too. So on codingforentrepreneurs.com.
Free bribe you can give them just to get their email address.
I'm sorry?
So you do have a free bribe you can give them to get their email address.
Yeah, because there are ads. I have it ad supported, so I actually make money from YouTube too. It's not like the videos are free, but I do make money from the ads. And the bribe, essentially, to go to codingforentrepreneurs.com, I don't want to call it a bribe. The incentive to go to codingforentrepreneurs.com is because you can watch the same videos in HD and ad-free, and then also see,
Is your income from YouTube like statistically significant?
It's not. It's something that pays me for my time. I mean, it's not. I wouldn't say like, oh my gosh, I'm making so much money from YouTube directly from YouTube.
Would you say it's even 5% of your monthly income from Coding for Entrepreneurs?
Yeah, that's probably about right. Roughly that, and it's continual. See, so it's
low. It's passive after you put in the first effort.
Absolutely, and I mean the ones that I actually did upload to YouTube, those ones I did a while ago, right? So now months later, I'm still getting the same amount of views, I'm still getting the same amount of subscribers and all that. So the next series that I end up uploading to YouTube will also drive that stuff more. So it's very reinforcing, which is pretty great.
Nice. So kind of back to the whole Udemy thing. I know now you run your own website. While you were sending people to Udemy, were you collecting their email address in any way? Because for most of the people we've interviewed, they've either done that and been really happy they did that, or they didn't do it and are like, oh man, that was a lost opportunity. Were you like collecting users anywhere else while doing that?
Yeah, so no, I was not. I was not collecting their email addresses prior to actually having them go to my Udemy classes. So, at the time I was more concerned about
actually. At the time you were validating your business, there were other.
Exactly. So I mean, having that middle step is possibly a great idea, but at the same time, it's also possibly very risky.
I think no one did it as a middle step. What some people did is they did it as the first step inside your Udemy course. So you get them to sign up, but like the first lecture or something is like, hey, there's a discussion board here, or hey, there's these other resources here.
Yeah. I actually haven't played around with that a whole lot yet. I'm definitely keeping the two communities as separate as I possibly can, because the Udemy audience and the way Udemy's been working lately, it really feels like that audience is going to start to be its own thing. And then Coding for Entrepreneurs, all my YouTube stuff drives traffic to Coding for Entrepreneurs. I'll continue to build that community almost like as two separate entities at this point. That's what I plan to do going forward. Kind of the way I look at it is kind of like on if you were selling an ebook on Amazon, you look at Amazon's audience as one thing and then your own website is another. Now, that being said, it's probably a fantastic idea to have them also sign up on your website for additional free content or a discussion board. That's great. I mean, it's going to be something I'll have to experiment with.
Cool. So talk us a little bit through kind of the next step, when you decided to set up your own website, why you set it up, and, how you went about doing that. I know you have not used Fedora. I've tried, not for a lack of trying on my part.
Yeah.
I've probably sent Justin, 15 emails. 20
At least.
So either way, talk us through a little bit of that.
You're definitely a persistent guy. Well, before I actually jump into getting to my own website, Coding for Entrepreneurs, I'll talk about the mid part. So right after launching the course on Udemy, Coding for Entrepreneurs, the first one on Udemy, I'm like, hey, there's something to this. I'm getting some early traction. I want to take it to the next level. And I looked at Kickstarter as being a nice little bet, make a pitch video, do a lot of the same type of things that I need to do for my course anyway, and throw it on Kickstarter and see if I can get a bigger audience. And luckily for me, it worked out. And it worked out in a very organic fashion. So Kickstarter ended up raising a lot more than the goal. It was like, I think my goal was 7,500. The minimum amount I'd basically do the classes that I was offering. And then I ended up raising 5,400 or 54,000, excuse me, or a little bit more than that, which was awesome. We can talk about that in a second, but how that went, then later started being like, okay, well now I need to have pre-orders for this same content. Udemy's had restrictions on pre-orders and stuff like that. So I'm like, well, why don't I just sell it on my own site? And in fact, why don't I do it as a class too? So on YouTube, there's a tutorial called Try Django MVP Landing. So basically what I did was I made this MVP landing page and I had a PayPal pre-order button and just got pre-orders, and a ton of pre-orders came in as a result of that Kickstarter too.
Are these like late backers of Kickstarter? How did...
Essentially, yeah. So the funding ended, and then I launched this MVP landing, and then I got a lot more pre-orders because of Kickstarter, right? So yeah, that's essentially what happened. Yeah. So however you want to call it. Anyway, so that alone validated, okay, I think I need to actually build this website even more. And the next few months, as I was developing the courses for the Kickstarter, I started to develop my own website to have a video membership, service basically, and all on my website and all built by me, and then to later be its own class in of itself. So, yeah.
So let's go back to Kickstarter because that's super, super interesting.
Okay.
What do you think it is that made your project successful? And were you expecting that? Like, what were your expectations going into Kickstarter?
Going into Kickstarter in general, I have very low expectations. I look at Kickstarter as a great way to validate and test your idea on a different scale to a different audience, right? So like I looked at the Coding for Entrepreneurs for Kickstarter as like, hey, this will be fun. My brother's in town. He's a filmmaker. He's like, oh, I'll make the pitch video for you. I'm like, cool. So yeah, very convenient. Yes, absolutely. So we went on the balcony of my apartment at the time, and we shot this video. It took maybe 2 or 3 hours, only because I was ridiculously nervous. At that time, I didn't have a whole lot of experience in front of a camera still.
You're natural now.
Yeah, thanks. Now I'm just comfortable with it. I'm comfortable talking at my computer with nobody else in the room, right? And then when somebody else is in the room, it's not a big deal because I have a lot more confidence. But thank you. Anyway, so we did this video, and the reason it took so long is my nerves. But this is about 2 months after I launched, or maybe a month and a half after I launched that first Udemy class. So I didn't have very many videos for pitches. So I'm like, well, this will at least be really good for my pitch video for Udemy. If the Kickstarter just fails completely, cool. At least I'll have a cool pitch video and that will work great, right? And so I launched that Kickstarter and it went phenomenally well. We were funded in 3 days, and I attributed, and it all pretty much mostly organic. So the Kickstarter audience brought...
That's literally like a Kickstarter perfect storm. Like everything just worked. It was not like I A/B tested the copy like 20 times and I found this like perfect thing.
Yeah, and luckily a friend of mine who he did copywriting. I don't know if he does it anymore, but he was doing copywriting. He did some stuff for me for my Udemy class, and that helped a lot. His name's Steven Summers. He's an awesome guy. And then he also did the copywriting for my Kickstarter, and that really helped do stuff. I mean, he basically tweaked what I already had, but you can use my Kickstarter or a lot of other Kickstarters as a template on your own.
I think that's a good idea. I think below this interview, we're going to embed your Kickstarter promo video.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, I mean, I looked at it as a very small bet, and it blew up, and the Kickstarter audience brought in about 80% of the funding, maybe more than that. And at the time, I didn't spam everybody. I didn't ask all my friends to back it. at all. I mean, I posted it on Facebook a couple times, and some of my friends did repost it and stuff like that, because the name Coding for Entrepreneurs, it really resonates with people. Learning how to code is, well, I would compare it to learning how to read when the press came out, or the book press, or what's it called? The printing press. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going blank on my technology here. So when the printing press came out, people were probably wondering, why would I learn how to read? That's crazy. I really compare this time to now, to back then, right? Because code is the language of computers, and if you know how to do it, then you can use and magnify what your potential is using these computers. Code is merely your thoughts in action, which is awesome.
It adds leverage in anything you could do.
Absolutely. And I mean, as an entrepreneur, even just testing your ideas with a basic MVP landing and getting early funding, I mean, how awesome is that? I mean, getting validation with actual money, that's amazing. So
I'm a shitty engineer that built Fedora on my relatively poor technical skills. I mean, obviously now platform has changed, it's evolved, there's real developers behind it. But yeah, I mean, I followed a similar kind of blueprint of just building something myself to test this idea. And, we raised money on the back of that. We processed sales on the back of that. So totally agreed with that.
Right. And you wouldn't have been able to do that if you didn't know one language, and which is amazing, because people ask me all the time, what language should I learn? Well, I would love it if you picked Python and Django. Python's a programming language. Django is a web framework written in Python. I'd love if you picked Python and took my courses, of course. But realistically, you need to stick with one and stick with it until you understand it and you feel comfortable enough to launch a web app. And, so that's something else. But coding itself, that is very hot right now, right? So, luckily for me, Coding for Entrepreneurs came out around the same time that Code.org launched their video with Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates and a few NBA players and all these people talking about the need for us to learn how to code. So my timing was really good in that sense. So coding itself, the name itself, really resonated. Now, entrepreneurship, this is this other thing that's really popular right now, and it makes a lot of sense. A lot of big businesses are failing. A lot of people like you and me, we want to have a meaningful life. We want to do something that means something to us, and then also that we can build and really be hands-on with.
If you think about it, popular culture has made it trendy. You would not have thought, started with the social network, now you have Silicon Valley. It's come into popular culture in a big time way that did not exist 5 or 10 years ago. It's become one of the aspirational occupations.
Absolutely. And I mean, because it's not really a small business. I mean, they call it a small business, but it's not the same as what a small version of a big business. Now, Steve Blank with Lean Launchpad and all that stuff, he talks about this in depth. Starting a business is not like taking GM and making it smaller. It's not like that at all. It's a science experiment. You have this hypothesis, you test it, and then you learn from it, and then you do it again, right? It's very straightforward and simple in that sense, right? So it's hot right now, and it's something that I think everyone should give a shot. Entrepreneurship's not for everybody because, when sales go up, that's awesome. But when sales go down and you don't know exactly why, it's not as awesome, right? Yeah, right. It's so terrible. And then things pick back up, but that's kind of how entrepreneurship goes. Now, if you want that steady paycheck and you want to make X amount every month and you know how to budget and all that, maybe entrepreneurship is not for you. That's okay. But you can still try things on the side and still do a little side business and have a little bit of extra income. I mean, what would you do with an extra $500 a month? I mean, what would I know what I would do? So that's one thing. Now, for me, coding and entrepreneurship, that marriage is very much about who I am too, right? Entrepreneurship is something that I've wanted for a very, very long time. Coding is just kind of how I got there. I learned how to code. I think it's such an awesome personal challenge to undertake. And those two things, so coding for entrepreneurs just was totally selfish, but it totally worked, right? So I made Coding for Entrepreneurs for the 2009, well, probably 2005 version of me, right? And luckily, there's a lot of 2005, in that sense, versions of me out there.
Judging by kind of how passionately you feel about the name, do you think the project would have gotten as easily funded with a different name?
That's a great question. So the Django community itself, so that is growing tremendously too. For a few reasons, Python is probably the easiest programming language to learn. next to a few others, but Python I think has the edge right now. Swift is getting there. Ruby is up there too. But I think Python is the easiest to learn for any beginner to build web applications. So if I use the name Django, I think it would have resonated probably with the audience. But if you look on Kickstarter for old Django projects, some of them just didn't do that well. And then also all of my friends that know me, they know me as an entrepreneur, not as a coder. So that it really kind of fit more with friends that wanted to, share with other friends and stuff like that, which was minor, but still something. And I'm obviously very thankful that some of my friends did that without me even asking.
And that probably helped give the first spark. Like when you started the project, did you go in with anyone ready to donate right away?
No, I had no idea, honestly.
So you don't have $1,000 kind of pre-committed that would go live as soon as.
Not a dime.
So you ran, like when you talk to like people that are crowdfunding experts, you ran about as unoptimal a campaign as you could have, but still killed it.
Well, with the exception of a great video from my brother and then great copy from Steven Summers. I mean, that stuff helped.
Oh yeah, and those are two massive factors. Is there anything else you think you did correctly, either intentionally or accidentally?
Yeah.
Obviously, timing, very important.
Yeah, timing's huge on that. But even timing now is still right for these types of classes. But the other part of it was I had a class already going, and it was considered a best-selling class in Udemy at the time already. So that was big. I already had credibility indicators for that content under the same name, luckily. And then on the other side, I actually had a 10-minute video showing people how to make a HTML web page. It's very simple. It really would take 10 minutes.
Was that on YouTube or?
It was on YouTube, yeah. It was on my own YouTube channel, which, looking back, I made a bunch of errors and stuff like that, and some people actually called me out on the errors, but it's challenging to record a video from memory. I've gotten a lot better at it, but I don't follow a script ever. I think that sounds scripted, and I hate it. I don't like it.
Yeah, I tried it once. It was it was pretty bad, especially if you're like going through a process, and in one small thing changes and everything breaks. You're used to saying certain things. It doesn't work, at least for me. But I know some people, and I think it's a personality thing, because some people like that and are better like that. I just find myself becoming super mechanical.
Absolutely. And this goes with my presentations too. In college, I really got good at doing presentations, so PowerPoint presentations. Being that I was at a business school, you have to do presentations, right? I got really good at doing presentations where I wouldn't memorize the lines. I would know the content and then just, do what I'm doing right now is just, explain the content as I remembered it, because I embodied that, and it made it so much easier for me. So that being said, I made this little video of how to make an HTML site. So any skeptic could at least go through that video and be like, hey, I can actually do some HTML. It's actually simple. It's easy. I did it, and maybe it took them 30 minutes, maybe it took them an hour, but they did it, and they made their first web page. So that's something that I think really helped me too, is actually getting them into my content, my teaching style, and also building some confidence for them so they go, wow, I can do this. So then they jump on the Kickstarter.
Do you know how many views that video got during the campaign running?
I don't know off the top of my head at all. I think the total views for it are maybe $2,000 or 2,000 or maybe 3,000. So not
number of YouTube views and 10 grand views.
yeah. Sorry, I've got something else on my mind, obviously. But yeah, I think it was 2,000, maybe at the most. I don't remember, because I think I pulled it even because there was a lot of errors, and it's actually a really ugly video, and there's a lot of things wrong with it. Now,
I think that in turn kind of reinforces the power of online education. The fact that you could raise over $50,000 with an ugly video, right?
Yeah. The actual course part of the ugly video, yeah, totally. And so those things around what I did for Coding for Entrepreneurs already really helped elevate that Kickstarter. I think it made all the difference. And I had a bunch of my backers tell me, I backed this project because of your Udemy class. No other reason. They're like, well, sometimes they'll say you're passionate in your video and you get me excited and stuff like that. Those are great, but I think the real tipping point is that they saw that other people really liked it, and other people paid for it, and it was very rated.
That's kind of the advantage of like the landing pages, where most people, when they see 4,000 people sign up and a $100 price tag, they don't know like 3,700 of them are free. Like
Right.
at least that's something I've found. I remember someone once looking at one of my Udemy classes and being like, dude, you've made like $10 million. Like you have like a $500 course that
Yeah.
like, so that's definitely one of the like advantages of, just like creating perceived value.
Yeah, totally. And that's been my experience too. And actually, before I even taught on Udemy, I'm looking at a lot of these courses going, wait a minute, this guy made 80 grand for teaching HTML, like, which is so simple. I'm like, no way, like that can't be real. I was very skeptical, but it does work. I mean, it worked for me. I think that stuff convinced me to teach on Udemy in the first place instead of just trying to sell it on my own website.
So then you had the Kickstarter, which the late backers kind of became the gateway to building your own website.
Right.
How's that experience been?
Great. I mean, building my own website for this content was definitely a challenge, but a challenge that I was ready for. I mean, I've been coding for a while. I've been teaching it. I've been doing it for clients. It was really something that I was ready to jump into. And actually building it was just something that I really needed to do for a few reasons. One of them being, I want to control as much as I can the experience that people have when they work solely with coding for entrepreneurs. So if they work on my affiliate partner, so if I sell on Udemy and they're in there and they get that experience, that audience is used to the Udemy experience. Now, if they come to me because of coding for entrepreneurs, like on YouTube or something like that, I want to introduce them to a new coding for entrepreneurs experience, and that's what I built on codingforentrepreneurs.com. So as far as trying things out and actually building certain functions of the site, initially I did a very rough thing. I mean, I didn't hash out every single thing that I possibly could. I took a lot of the advice from, I think it's Jason Fried from 37 Signals. He wrote a book called Rework, and they talk about a lot of this stuff in general. Like, they didn't have billing for Basecamp when they launched it. They didn't know how to charge credit cards. Now, since then, a lot of tools have been released, like Stripe and Braintree, that make it easy to accept payment. But I looked at that as like, hey, how can I get this up and going? Start controlling that experience or building an experience for my audience or the audience I'm a part of, and then do that as soon as possible, and then start adding features and stuff like that as I grow. So that was one of the biggest reasons to actually building Coding for Entrepreneurs as that. So I completely controlled it. The other side of it is like, the weird expression, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, I teach coding. It would be very strange for me to not also have something that my audience can interact with in real time that is like my bread and butter, right? I don't have Facebook. I don't have, web applications that people can jump in that I built completely myself that they can really work with. So that's kind of why those two reasons are why Coding for Entrepreneurs exists. The other slight reason was a few other reasons, like financial reasons. Cash flow is a big thing. So on Udemy, it takes 30 days for them to pay you. I would rather be paid today, every day, get sales, that is. And then the other side was Udemy at the time was taking large percentage of the sales that we drove to Udemy for the course, which has changed completely since, which I'm happy Udemy did that. They listened to all the instructors, which is cool. But the part of it, which is, that was part of the actual motivation to creating codingforentrepreneurs.com too. So
How much? So the other thing I find really interesting about Coding for Entrepreneurs is you're not priced like, a Udemy course. You're priced monthly, kind of more like the lynda.com model. One, was that also a reason why you built Coding for Entrepreneurs, like wanting to implement that model? Secondly, like, what's your experience been with monthly recurring? And we'll talk about that more, because that's something we push a lot of people to experiment with. We make it really easy on Fedora to like charge either a single course or the entire site on a single monthly fee. But I'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on, why you price like that and how happy you are with that model.
Yeah, well, there's a few reasons. I'm a big fan of Netflix. I mean, I don't know very many people that aren't. You pay a low monthly fee and you get access to all this content, whether it grows or not. You get access to all of it and you kind of stick with it. Now, if you're committed to coding, I want that same type of idea with me. Now, my content takes me personally a ton of time, where Netflix has just built kind of this system that takes other people's content and it's easy for them. All they have to worry about is their system. For me, I have to worry about my system and my content. So it's twofold, right? It's double and then some of what Netflix does. So that's why I priced it at $25. Double and then some. That's kind of what I thought.
I think 25. Like if you were to be on Fedora, I would advise you to price either 29 or 39. Like I think your pricing makes a lot of sense. I've seen too many instructors fall into the trap of looking at Netflix and Spotify and being like, hey, they have more content and they only charge like $9. I should charge $5. But it's really, really, really hard to build it. You're never going to have their scale. And there are people that, passionately want your product and will pay more for that. So I think the pricing that you have is, it's on point. I would definitely not go any lower than that based on having looked at, we've looked at real data from a lot of subscriptions. Everyone charging $9 a month, $15 a month, they struggle to, build real businesses on that.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, let's just do the math on 10 and 20, right? Let's say, for instance, you're thinking 10 and you're thinking 20. Well, 20, that's 2 customers at 10, right? That means you have to convince half as many customers to make the same amount of money, right? Now, one could also argue, well, why not charge $100 a month then? Well, you could, but I also don't want to price out
to find the right point, which is why 29, 39 is a good thing. The other thing I found, I don't know if your data kind of agrees with that, is whenever we have lower instructors charging really low amounts, they tend to get lower quality users too. Users that either cancel very, very soon, so the lifetime value is really low, or users whose credit cards bounce. That happens a lot when you have a lot of instructors run a promotion where the first month is only $1 and then it's $19 a month or whatever. And those promotions work out sometimes, but a lot of times you get the worst kinds of customers, just people that are a huge support pain. They're huge pain. They take up so much time on support. They take up so much they're the ones downloading your content, uploading it on torrent sites. It just brings the wrong kind of person.
Right. Because that opens up the whole global audience, right? So $25 a month is not that expensive in the US, but in places like India or China, which I do have members from, that's not cheap. That is something
upper class product,
right. And that also prices out a lot of those people who might take advantage of your system. Now, I realize that stuff's going to happen one way or another. And a very interesting book, if you're worried about your stuff getting out there for free, a very interesting book to read is Free by Chris Anderson. He's written a lot of great books. It's not the Chris Anderson from TED, it's Chris Anderson from Wired magazine. That book is awesome. I definitely recommend checking it out because it really helped me think differently of how I approach free.
So interesting you bring that up because very frequently one of the support questions we get is hey, I'm really worried someone's gonna steal my content. How do you protect against that? It's one of those things that on the internet there's only so much you can do. But anecdotally, what we found is our most successful instructors tend to be the ones that don't really spend time thinking about that. They consider it a small cost of doing business, and they try and empower the people that want to use it legitimately. So, for instance, most of our best-selling instructors make it possible to download their videos, which is almost encouraging piracy when you think about it. But to them, it's just a small cost of doing business, and you focus on the legitimate users and think that a small percentage will steal, but a lot of times they'll come back for your services, they'll come back for a future product. They'll still come back for other stuff if they are the kind of people that would buy something. Some people just will never buy something, and why worry about them?
Absolutely. It also has to do with, if you look at iTunes and this concept called the path of least resistance. So when you're watching water go down a river, the water is always going to take the path of least resistance. So that means if there's a rock in the way, the water's going to go around it. It's not going to try and go over it, right? It'll just go around it. So that's what the path of least resistance is all about. Now, if you look at iTunes and why iTunes was so successful versus Napster or any BitTorrent or anything like that, iTunes is so successful because of people that are willing and able and can afford, willing and able I guess is the same thing, but can afford to pay for a song and don't want to spend an hour looking for 10 songs. They just want to spend $10 and pay for it. So what iTunes did was give that path of least resistance to allow the most people just do a click and boom, you got the exact song that you want, the best quality and all that, right? So with what we do on our online stuff, we offer the path of least resistance to the highest quality content version of it available, and it's organized the way we set out and all that. The other side, if people are stealing it and putting it on BitTorrents and stuff like that, those people probably aren't going to pay for it anyway. And if they don't pay for it now, they might pay for it in the future, because if they can't afford it now, once your content helps them get better and stuff like that, there's a few things that happen. Number one, they become fans of yours, which is hugely valuable, regardless of how much they pay you or what their value is right now. Think of the biggest celebrities. If you were an online celebrity for whatever niche you're doing, that's hugely valuable, regardless of how much those fans paid you. And then the other side of it is, once they actually become a person who doesn't want to spend hours trying to find your content for free, and then they will go through the path of least resistance and just pay you for your class.
And there's also, I think, a third kind that is never going to pay for content online, and that's fine. I mean, it's not missed dollars that you would have had otherwise.
Exactly, right. Yeah, some people just won't pay.
And making them fans of yours makes so much sense. I mean, that's kind of the model the music industry has moved to in a lot of ways, where, they make money from Spotify, but it pales in comparison to concerts, right? So the equivalent of something like that could be the future of education, when you almost have like celebrity status in a lot of places, and people will pay to, meet you, attend talks by you, that kind of stuff.
Exactly, and that's Free talks about that a lot. Mark Cuban talks about the path of least resistance a lot too. So I would check those two things out if you want to learn more about that. So,
okay, back to monthly subscriptions. How's that? I mean, how's that been? Because those are different kinds of products to run. I mean, are you happy with the choice you made there? And
absolutely happy, because realistically, it gives me more steady income, right? So it's definitely more steady than just selling one-offs. And at the same time, it shows our members that we are dedicated to making this thing better. And if you don't think we're doing that anymore, stop, pause, leave, right? So that is something that puts us on the hook for two things. Now, if you just had a product and you just sold it at its plain price, there's nothing wrong with that, but there's really no guarantee that you're going to make it better. And what a monthly membership does is it makes Coding for Entrepreneurs focused on making better all the time, whether that's our web app itself or the actual content within it. That's what that membership does, and that's why it's so important. And that's also why I'm such a big fan of it, is because it does that. So definitely happy with it. I think the pricing is more than fair for what you get, personally, because you do get streaming and you get downloading and you get a lot of code. And I try my best to answer every single question that I can. I mean, I don't answer all of them. Our community answers a lot of questions too. And if they do answer them incorrectly, then I will just leave it. But that's what that $25 does. It pays for that whole system.
Have you thought about it? And again, this is based on seeing a lot of data. Have you thought about offering 2 tiers?
I have thought about it. I've thought about, go ahead.
So just because I guarantee you it'll increase your bottom line. If you have something, I think even Linda does that, where you have, I think their second tier is asset files, but just the idea of having, the $25 and maybe $39 or $35 or something, $45 maybe,
right.
Which could either be premium support, it could be something else. Is that something you're thinking about?
Yeah, I've thought about it, but really what I'm focusing on right now is making my content even better, right? So I haven't spent a whole lot of time with playing around with different, plans, if you will, at this point, just because there is so much stuff that I'm excited about doing and bringing out that I really want to focus on that versus playing around with how I can, earn a few extra bucks from my members. Granted, those few extra bucks would go a long way. I get that, but I want to make better content so then they just rave about it and tell all their friends, and then it just grows organically that way. I'm very much about organic growth personally. So
yeah, it's funny. I mean, obviously, organic growth is great, but I mean, I come from the perspective of just looking at so many online businesses and trying to find kind of the quick wins that help people take their business to the next level. So
right.
Another one that I've seen a lot of people do well with is when you have a monthly product, allowing someone to buy it annually as well at a discount. I don't know if
right.
you've experimented with that, but that's, again, a very quick way of increasing your cash flow. Letting someone prepay for a year, but instead only charge them maybe what 8 months costs or something. So they get like 1/3 off.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great idea because it also puts that person a little bit more on the hook. So psychologically, that they're like, okay, I paid for this year. Now I have this whole year to really learn it. But the other side of it is, this is why I'm kind of wrestling with it, is if they do pay for the year, and let's say, for instance, they're stoked for those first 2 weeks, and then they kind of trail off and don't do anything, well, I'll just do it in a couple months. And then a couple months go by, I'll do it in a couple more months. That's something I kind of want to avoid. But granted, at the same time, maybe I should be giving benefits to members who are willing to join for the whole year and still be very
A lot of
active.
people, it can be useful, especially I find like this time of the year, the end of December, to be the best time for multiple reasons. One, it's like resolution time, which is a great time when people are like, okay, this is the year I'm going to learn how to code. The second reason is more like practical, but a lot of people that are independent contractors, small businesses, they frequently like to prepay for your product for the next year because it's tax deductible for this year. So right now everyone's thinking about their taxes. So this is the best time we've found for people to prepay for an annual subscription. Just because for a lot of people, like if you're a contractor and you want to spend money on business expenses, buying a year of a coding subscription is a great way to go about it, especially if you can pay for it this calendar year and take it all of next year.
Absolutely. That alone is a great point, especially for entrepreneurs. So I do appreciate you bringing that up.
Yeah, sweet. How much time do you spend kind of, obviously you're different from a SaaS company in a lot of ways, but your pricing is exactly the same, right? Very similar model. Do you ever think about, your metrics from a SaaS perspective, like, hey, what's my monthly churn rate? For people that don't know, churn is the percentage of subscribers that cancel every month. Do you ever look at those kinds of metrics and try and optimize them?
No, I don't, because what I'm trying to optimize is just making a better product. Steve Jobs was a big fan of this too, and it worked out very well for him, is just focusing relentlessly on improving your product. If I was worrying too much about how often I'm having turnover from my members, I think it might start bringing me down a path that I am just not ready to go down, and I'm not big enough to really go down yet.
It's still entirely a one-man show, correct?
Yeah, I do have a lot of help. I do have independent contractors that I work with on time to time. But for the most part, yeah, it's just me.
Cool. Yeah. So I can imagine that, you're the guy running the business and creating the content, which cannot be easy.
Yeah. And that's where focusing on the product is really important to me, right? So the turnover obviously is important as well. But month over month, it's been growing. So I'm as long as that continues to be the case, and I'm getting great feedback from my members and stuff like that, then I will just continue to do what we're doing. Now, of course, I will also research these other things that will affect my business as I grow, because, I don't want to be growing steadily. I want to be growing exponentially at some point. But I do know that there are several products that I'm working on right now that I'm just not ready to talk about really, but they will help do so much for us, and also just kind of polish the whole membership in general.
So if you were to be starting this business right now, what would you do differently? Which kind of ties into, the final question, what if you could impart 2 or 3 sentences of wisdom to people that are starting a business right now, really excited about teaching online, domain experts of some, have some skill that they're know better than anyone else. What advice would you have for them?
Start recording. Just get your class going. Once you get it going, you can tweak it, you can make your product, and just start it, finish it, and then release it. Those things are very simple, but it's something that I struggled with early, that if I didn't, because really, I think I said I was thinking about launching Coding for Entrepreneurs for a few months. The more I thought about it, it was about a year. I had this idea for a long time, because once I had a very hold on actually knowing the content, it took me a long time. So I would say once you actually start recording, open up QuickTime or the Windows equivalent, record, don't spend too much money, just record your content, make it as personable as best you can. Don't try to be anything that you're not, and just make it happen. I know a lot of that stuff sounds super cliche, but it's one of the things I wish I did earlier.
Get out of your head, just get something done. Get your first MP4 or whatever out there. upload it just because like it's a nice kind of completion like mechanic. You just feel nice. You've accomplished something and put something out there. I think that's a great note to end this at.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, man. It's been great chatting with you.
You as
Super
well.
excited to see what these cool secret projects you're working on are.
Yeah, I'm really excited about them as well. I mean, it's been one heck of a journey, I must say, and I attribute so much of that as actually taking the time to build a class and launch it online. It's amazing. I can't wait to see what this online world becomes, because there's still a lot of skills. I don't know how you feel, but there's still a lot of skills that I want to learn myself. So.
And I mean, on my end, I promise to keep pestering you about Fedora.
Yeah, and on my end, I'm probably gonna have to just kindly decline. But yeah, I do.
Let's see how long you can be kind for.
Yeah, Ankur, hey, it was a lot of fun, man. Thanks so much. I look forward to seeing what you come up with next, man.
Cool. Awesome, man. Take care.
Take care.